probably wondering how I ended up in this situation. So this was just after that fixed-wing flight that you saw. I was feeling pretty confident the way the aircraft was performing, and I decided to go right for a transition. So you can see the hovering takeoff here. You can hear the new roll motors. They're quite a bit louder than they were before, but they work pretty well. And here we go with the outbound transition. This was pretty smooth. RG-Pilot has moved the duct to about 45 degrees here, and it's waiting for the airspeed to build. For whatever reason, I've either got that initial tilt too low or the airspeed too high, and it waits for a little bit longer than it should. It's not till right here where it actually commits to the transition. But otherwise, that was pretty good. Not much altitude loss, and it was in stable flight the whole time. Here's what the takeoff looked like from the ground. I didn't spend a lot of time hovering because with the wings and all, this thing taxes the batteries pretty hard. But you can see it start to transition and build speed pretty smoothly. And then there's the little chase quad. In the chase footage, it's a little bit more clear that the state that the vehicle is in after the initial transition is kind of a half transition state where the nozzle is at about 45 degrees and the lift and the roll motors are still active. But right around here you can see it kind of snap into the full forward flight mode. So around here I'm starting to pull the power back and get ready for transition. I'm going to start playing the video back a little slower so that we can take a closer look at what's going on. At the start, the nozzle motion is pretty normal up until about here. And now what you'll see is the second section stops moving. The first one and the third one complete their rotations until we end up in this state. And from there, there's really not much we can do to recover. Honestly, it was pretty funny to watch. The spin that the aircraft settled into was pretty flat. It might have been the outward force from spinning that made that happen, but also the roll motors were still pretty active, so that helped. And when the aircraft eventually hit the ground, it wasn't descending too quickly, and that helped to minimize the damage. So it is in decent shape. None of the wings or tails are damaged, which is nice because I just finished those. Pretty much the only thing that was damaged was some plastic mounts in the front for the lift fan and the nose gear, some plastic mounts in the middle for the battery, and then the mounts in the back that hold the ducted fan and the 3BSM. The 3BSM itself, as far as I can tell, is perfectly fine. It did have the back of one of these little motors pop off, as well as the encoder, which brings me to what I think caused the issue that led to the crash in the first place. You can see on the back of these encoders there's a bunch of pretty thin wires for the motor direction and speed, and for the encoder itself that count the steps. And a few of these are broken, and they're broken on a couple of different motors. It's tough to tell which one happened before the crash and which happened during the crash, but in general, if these encoder wires come off or if the motor wires come off, there's nothing in the duct code to catch that and stop the other sections from moving and vectoring the thrust in a direction that we don't want. So I'm pretty confident that was the case. These wires are pretty stiff and the solder pads are pretty small, so what I did was Pololu recently made a new version of the encoders that, instead of the wire pads, has some JST-SH connectors. They look a lot more robust. I can always glue the connectors to keep them from pulling out. And I also got some nice long JST-GH cables to go with them. So I've got all that stuff on order. That's going to be here soon. Even though the 3BSM is fine, I am going to take this opportunity to replace it with a new version of it. That makes a couple of smaller improvements. And then I'll get this back together pretty soon. There's a long weekend coming up. Plenty of time to work. And I'm excited to get back and do some more real transitions and then land afterwards, hopefully. In the meantime, I might do a live stream for rebuilding this frame. Let me know in the comments if you think that's something I should do, because I don't want to get all set up for that and then have like 4 people actually watching it. But I figured it'd be a good opportunity to go and kind of show the assembly process for all these printed parts that I've got, and then answer questions here and there for how everything works. So yeah, keep an eye out for that and stay tuned.